The character-driven Netflix miniseries Hot Skull riffs on the COVID pandemic by using an alternate, unique, and I think really creative disease concept. But do its strengths overcome the barrier that English audiences may naturally feel while trying to watch a Turkish language story? Stick around and I'll share my thoughts. I'm Paeter from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of the miniseries premiere for Hot Skull. The synopsis on IMDb reads, in a dystopian world, as an epidemic spreads through verbal communication, a tyrannical institution pursues a linguist immune to the disease. And I just watched episode 1 of the 8-episode miniseries, which I think it's self-contained. I think it's just a complete story. I'm not sure of that, but that's the impression I get when they call it a miniseries. Anyway, I watched the first episode. Synopsis for that says, after an incident at the supermarket, Murat gets on Anton's radar and has to leave his hideout in search of a lost friend presumed to be dead. Okay, so what does this thing basically feel like? I think that the first thing to mention is that it's obviously inspired by what many of us experienced as normal for a while during the height of COVID-19 precautions. But instead of masks, people in Hot Skull wear noise-canceling headphones. The disease is spread by hearing a symptomatic person speak, which sounds like a nonsensical ordering of real words into incoherent sentences. The main character is immune but suffers feverish headaches during exposure in place of contracting the disease. The local population, at least, and maybe it's broader, but I mean it's focused on Turkey, maybe Istanbul specifically. But anyway, at least the local population is under the control of this government, I think, agency with military strength, clearly, that took the opportunity the pandemic provided to seize control in the guise of protecting its citizens. Hot Skull has a bit of a quiet indie vibe at times as we follow the main character, Murat. He's living almost catatonically. He's clearly in the wake of some terrible loss that we only begin to understand the nature of in the first episode. There's some recurring internal monologuing that he does and symbolic imagery that take us inside what he's thinking and feeling from time to time. While many other times our understanding of Murat is handled by the actor's moments of non-verbal performance, which I'm always game for. There is plenty to read in the subtitles throughout, but there are also frequent sequences in which visuals and performance tell the story and convey who the characters are and what they're feeling. There's a constant, I think, either tense or just somber emotional undercurrent that really put me in, I think, the appropriate mood for the setting and the situations. But there's also recurring humor that's subtly conveyed in the musical score or in the performances or the dialogue that maybe at times will just go a tad funny here and there. And at times it was subtle enough that I wondered, is this supposed to be funny? Yeah, that's a little weird. That's a little like definitely like a little bit of a joke there. But it's probably more to keep the mood from being too one-note and depressing, although it was enough to give me a couple very light chuckles in the first episode. The main arc of the first episode is about Murat figuring out his place in the world going forward. He's immune to this disease for reasons connected to his past that we are not completely informed of in the first episode, and the first episode is about him taking the first steps out of his grief to re-enter life in some sense, which we can assume may also involve having a big impact on the world and the status quo of the world with this epidemic going on. As far as the cast goes, despite being completely dependent on subtitles, I thought the performances really came through. In fact, when I think back to the first episode, I can almost imagine that I did watch it with them speaking English. And the cast is largely made up of normal-looking people instead of the all-too-common sculpted actors of Hollywood. So between the very natural look of the actors and their strengths as performers, I felt very engaged and pulled into the story and able to invest in the realism of this world and its characters. Murat is a nerd like me, like many of us, and that I hurt for in his loss and that I feel joy with in some of his brief, sweet moments that he experiences, and a lot of that, I think, is due to the actor's performance. At the same time, the style of the filming helps a lot, too. It's not this overly stylistic type of thing, but it frequently uses close-ups that let the actors employ subtle and more grounded emoting moving. There are some sparse visual effects almost exclusively during the symbolic sequences that represent Murat's internal thoughts and feelings. These look pretty glaringly CG to me, but I have no problem with that because they are representing something that isn't meant to be accepted as a convincing reality. So I think this is an example of a movie or a show knowing what it is, knowing the limitations of its budget, and allowing visual effects to play a role that suits their strengths instead of exposing their weaknesses. So I really appreciate just the overall visual approach and philosophy that I'm seeing so far. As far as themes, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? Well, as I said, Murat is clearly identified as a nerd. They even do that in the dialogue at one point, and I feel like he does represent us as geeks and our tendencies, many of us anyway, pretty well. In the wake of pain or difficulty in life, I think a lot of us default toward retreating from people and just living day to day, kind of in autopilot, kind of mentally shut off in some ways, not really engaging in a deeper purpose in life. We're kind of just in a survival mode, doing what we got to do each day, enjoying our geek hobbies at night, and then that's, all there is to our lives. For many of us, that's just kind of a tendency that we have. Even if that doesn't describe actually our reality, I think it describes what is the tendency for a lot of us, and I think the tendency for me probably. But Murat senses a clear call in this episode to break from that tendency and to re-enter life with purpose and vigor. And although I have no reason to think this idea is written in the script here from a Christian perspective, I think it has great relevance to us as Christian geeks, whom Christ has given enormous purpose to, if we will choose to enter into it in our daily lives. All right, now I have no idea what your tastes are in TV shows, but if I were a time traveler, I would go back in time and say, Paeter, don't miss this. You should at least give this a try. There is a dub available, but you hate dubs, so you're gonna need to watch this with subtitles, which also means that you can't just test it out half-heartedly on a second screen while playing a video game. You're gonna have to commit to fully engaging to try this one out. But this is at least worth the hour required to try that first episode, after which you're going to find yourself making plans to potentially binge the remaining 7 episodes sometime very soon. This one is rated TVMA for language, smoking, substances, and violence. And those are all my thoughts for now on the miniseries premiere for Hot Skull on Netflix. Right now, I'd like to take some time to write a tune for pre-made rhyme. The lyrics kind of never change, but the melody gets rearranged. I never know what I'll create to say how much I appreciate Dan XL, Josh Reading, Gabriel Stinson, Brian Franklin, Olin D. Branham, Drew Rubb, Winston, Crutchfield, Lee, Bray, Justin, D. Myers, Cosmic, Fox, and Joel Nelson. Thank you for supporting me, and SBP and CGC, and now to all who hear this tune, thank you as well. Please come back soon. Want to hear your name in song. Check out our page on Patreon. All right, I would love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can get info about the benefits of joining over at patreon.com/Spirit Blade Productions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all CGC content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.